as we notice how hurricanes and heat waves become more frequent and intense. Increased heavy downpours lead to more flooding. Sea levels increasingly threaten coastal structures. A group of proactive teenagers fight back. Learn what Green Team America plans to combat climate change. Next on Living Smart. Hello, I'm Patricia Gross. Welcome to Living Smart, the show designed to help you get the most out of life. Gary Dunham seems an unlikely candidate to lead a crusade against man-made climate change. But after watching the documentary on Inconvenient Truth, his life was changed forever. The retired advertising executive began to research global warming with the passion of a zealot. He then co-founded the National Green Team America with earth scientist Dr. Andre Droxler to inspire youth to take ownership of their planet. Today, this grandfather and his wife lead thousands of youth to find solutions to global warming. Welcome to Living Smart.
Nice to be here.
Now, some people say, stop the global whining. But I would like for you to share what you think is the problem.
Well, the problem is sort of a perfect storm. Everybody knows about the CO2 pollution, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. But if that wasn't enough, the population problem is not talked about often, and there are probably religious overtones to that to keep that from happening, but it is very serious. Paul Ehrlich wrote The Population Bomb back in 1968, yes. And unfortunately we're pretty much on track with what he projected in that book. Just very quickly, when I was born in 1936, way back then, there were only about 2 billion people on the planet. 20 years later I got married and there were 2.5 billion people. Jumped 50 years later when my wife and I had our 50th anniversary, there were 7 billion people. We're on track right now that if I'm fortunate enough to live to be 100, and that's not a rare occasion anymore, in 2036 there will be 10 billion people on this planet. In my lifetime alone, 5-time expansion, and that's all. Too many people. And
it's almost impossible to put a stop to that. I mean,
well, you don't have to put a stop to it. You just have to curve the plane off a little bit.
Curve the plane off.
Because there's a reason to do that.
Okay, let's talk about what we can do, because you started Green Team America. Tell me about that. Why young people?
Well, because, you know, one of the things that stuck in my mind originally when we were talking about doing this is how much trouble we had when people started telling us we ought not to smoke anymore and we ought to use seat belts in our cars. And I didn't smoke, so that didn't bother me, but nobody was going to tell me I had to use a seat belt. And it took years, if you remember that, to get the manufacturers to put them in and to get people to use them. So there's a natural hesitancy. With the younger generation, you don't have that retraining to go into. They come, like some of the appliances, they come with batteries in it and already fully charged.
That's right.
They are ready to accept the fact that we do have to change.
So it wasn't hard for you to motivate them to deal with the atmospheric pollution
well,
that we
it's
have?
the other way around. I don't motivate them, they motivate us. And that really, I don't even mean that to be clever. That really is the truth. If we can get the young people to take charge of this problem, they will take care of their own families, and that radiates virally.
Now, you took the Green Team America to China. A lot of people in America say, well, the Chinese and the Indians, they're overpopulated as well, and they're not doing very much. What's the real story about what's going on in China as far as the youth and what they're doing to combat climate change?
Well, last year we sent a dozen of our students and some of the faculty advisors to China. In fact, we were very happy. Mayor Parker named our students Houston's Green Ambassadors. And when they got over there, the idea of our students going there was to connect up with their counterparts, with Chinese students. And when they came back, what we found out from them was the idea that I grew up with, that the Americans led the world, and John Wayne was the epitome of that. That really is not just a fantasy on our side. The rest of the world is waiting to see what we do. Most of what happens of consequence around the globe happens because we instigate something and the rest of the world adapts to it. The people you're talking about, the massive population areas that Pakistanis, the Indians, the Chinese, and especially the Chinese, are waiting to see what we're going to do about this man-made climate change. And so far, we haven't done anything.
Now, you say man-made climate change. There's still a lot of people who don't believe this, and there's still some scientists like Fred Singer who says, look, climate change happens over time, it varies, it's not a threat. How do you respond to that?
The truth of the matter is the debate is over. It's in the past. You know in your heart that this is a valid crisis problem that we're facing. I know it. Everybody knows it. Fred Singer knows it as well.
So why is he saying that?
Well, if you go back not too far back, again, I mentioned the tobacco industry. Everybody knew that tobacco was bad for your health. You knew that you were shortening your lifespan. It was bad for everybody, and yet we didn't stop. And you saw, as a matter of fact, start to say, you see a group of scientists. We saw 6 of the major industrial heads in our country, CEOs of the major tobacco companies, under oath, testifying to Congress, saying tobacco is not bad for your health. In fact, 2 of those people stood up and said it's beneficial to your health. We know that's not true.
So what's going to change? I mean, we still don't have the leadership really to say we got to really make major changes.
Well, that's the problem we're talking about. That's why Green Team
you
America
have to start from
exists.
The bottom, grassroots.
You have to do it because the commercial factor is not going to let us make a decision like putting seatbelts in a car. We're not going to decide to stop using fossil fuels.
Okay. Well, and we'll talk about why that's also very difficult to do. One other argument that is being used over and over and over is the environment versus jobs. Look, we start regulating this thing, we start doing moving away from coal or oil, then we're going to lose jobs. How do you argue with that?
Well, it's not an argument. It's just common sense that tells you the reason that we don't have the job level that we're supposed to have right now is because industry is not investing the money, setting on something. You hear all kinds of estimates, anywhere from $3 to $5 trillion worth of investment money is not being injected. If we changed over, forget the transitional side of fossil fuels. If we changed right now to an alternative fuel system in this country, it would cost trillions of dollars. We're already spending trillions of dollars in our war efforts and in the fossil fuel industry. Our infrastructure is falling down. We would need to spend that money. It's just a decision. It's not that it's impossible to do. We could do it. World War II proved that. We could do anything we want to do if the incentive is hard enough and drives us to do it. We could change, and we should change. That's what it comes down to.
But it would take a long time, wouldn't it, to move away from fossil fuels and coal? I mean, from oil and gas and fossil fuels in general.
It would not take a long time.
How much do you think it would take if that decision was
made? The industry talks in terms of decades. It literally could be done in terms of years. Okay. We could probably in 5 years, we could, if we made the decision to do it, we could do it in 5 years.
Tell me about social power. What I mean, solar power, not social power. Well, social power we need as well, but solar power. Why aren't we moving towards that?
Because it's the logical ultimate. It's where we need to wind up. Hydrogen or thermal or any of the other things that you're talking about are all good. Nuclear is good, but it's not the end result. Our planet exists because of the relationship we have to the star. We're hooked to a star, and that's our ultimate source. That's the primal force.
So that's what
we are going to end up with solar power at some point. Okay. Might as well start with it.
You like to use examples, very specific examples of what's happening. For example, the Glacier National Park. Tell me what you found there, and how do people react when you tell them what's happening?
It's heartbreaking. Glacier National Park was formed under the Teddy Roosevelt administration in 1901 or somewhere in there. When it was formed, there were 150 major glaciers in the park, which is why it was named Glacier National Park. Since that time, since 1901 to today, there are 25 glaciers left in that park because of the warming trend that is not part of the normal Earth's fluctuation. This is an abnormal warming trend. The 25 was not as bad as I thought it was until I did a little homework on it. What we're counting is glaciers in the park nowadays. Anything that has 25 acres or more is counted as a glacier. So they're very small puddles of ice. Within a decade, within 10 years, there will be no glaciers in that park. And that's symptomatic of what's happening all across
over the world.
planet.
Now, there's something that also you bring up in your speeches, and it's about the pipeline, the tar sand pipeline. Tell me why that you consider that to be one of the worst things that could happen.
Because it's an investment in the wrong part of our infrastructure. Our infrastructure needs help. We all know our bridges and various things, our roads and so forth, need a lot of help. But we're talking about spending absolutely astronomical amounts of money to insure the fossil fuel industry, which we should not be insuring. We should be translating out of that, and that is it's just the wrong concept. It again is the cigarette industry being translated into the fossil fuel industry.
Of course, we in Houston are the energy capital of the world, so you're fighting a very strong economic argument for doing things as they are.
Well, you just proved a point, though. You say that we are the energy capital of the world. When I was a young man, we didn't call ourselves the energy capital of the world. We called ourselves the oil capital of the world. The fossil fuel industry is very aware that there is an end to fossil fuels. We don't have to be the oil industry anymore. It can be truly an energy industry. Texas is already leading in wind power.
Yes,
we could lead in solar power very easily.
Some of the facts you share, tell us some of the facts you share in your presentations that are very, very powerful facts about what's going on.
One of them is if you took the time frame from yesterday when you had lunch to today when you're going to have lunch, 70 billion tons of CO2 was popped into our atmosphere. We haven't even leveled off that curve yet. We're still climbing in the increase that we're doing. CO2 in itself is not bad. If you pop a can of Coke, that fizz that comes out of it is CO2, and you can't see it. You have to hear it to even know that it's there, and you can imagine it has virtually a negligible weight factor, and yet every single day we put 70 billion tons into our atmosphere, and all it does is, it doesn't get black, you don't see it, what it does is thicken the atmosphere. That's the man-made global warming cycle.
We've seen in the past couple of years in the United States major droughts, major floods, major hurricanes. Is it the intensity of these events that is very obvious because of global warming? What is going on?
The simple answer is, for a guy like me, I'm not a scientist, I'm not that technically oriented, but when I understood what the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt is all about, our oceans are all connected all around the planet, and the actual movement of the water flows, the cold water levels and the warmer water levels around the Earth, what causes our weather. It's the climate generator, and so when those patterns that are set up that we call normal are changed for any reason. And just talk about our East Coast alone. The jet stream that goes up the East Coast affects two areas. One, it affects New York and the Northeast up there, and that's the typical global warming. If we mess up that great conveyor belt with the ocean climates, we get hot. But on the other side of the Atlantic, northern Europe has the exact opposite effect. Mm-hmm. So when we go into the man-made warming system over here, what happens is we've messed up the winds that normally flow from us to England, and England gets cold.
That's
and
right,
that's
yes.
one of the reasons why a lot of people are arguing, so, well, you say it's warming, but it's cold over here.
Right, right. Well, so you have to understand, it's really, I think one of the reasons why it's taken so long is it's hard to understand the science behind all this.
But if you keep it simple,
then you can understand it. Let's talk about some of the things that Green Team America does and that everybody can do to help out, to make things, to really make a change. So we're going to start with use compact fluorescent bulbs. This is so simple, and I know, like Australia, that's a requirement for the whole country. Tell me about that.
It's a requirement for this country too, but we're fighting it as hard as we can fight it, and yet there is a deadline for that. We're going to stop using the old-fashioned incandescent bulbs. We should have stopped it anyway, even if there wasn't a crisis around, because that's a 110-year-old technology, and we're still using the same technology.
Yeah.
It just is not efficient.
You inflate your tires. That's another thing we can do.
Well, it's not the worst polluter, everybody, but the tailpipe of a car with the CO2 coming out of it is a very visual scene. If you inflate your tires, you make your car run better. If it runs better, the engine doesn't labor, and you put less junk out the back end.
Change your car's air filter, same reason.
Same reason.
Fill the dishwasher. That's a given, right? I mean,
it is a given, but water is extremely important as well as the energy is.
We're running out of water too.
And if you run that dishwasher with a third of the contents in it, that means you got to run it again and again and again. Fill it up and run it one time. It's the efficient thing to do.
Smart thing to do. Use recycled paper. We do that here.
Save the trees.
Right. Save the trees. Adjust your thermostat. Where should it be, the thermostat?
Well, I tell you, the easiest way, again, to make things simple is if you normally set it for 68 because that's nice and cool, well, then kick it up to 72 in the summertime.
You can live with it.
And do the same thing in the wintertime to kick it down. Put a sweater on.
Right.
You don't have to have all that hot air coming out.
Absolutely. Change the AC filter. Also makes it more efficient.
So again, your air conditioner doesn't labor.
Take shorter showers. Again, water conservation.
But there's even a better one than that, than the shorter showers. Use the lavatory in the bathroom when you brush your teeth.
Right. Turn off the water. I do that all the time.
When you're shaving, I shaved this morning.
Turn off the water.
Turn off the water.
That's right. Install a low-flow shower head, and that's less water.
Sense.
You're wasting less water.
Usage. Because your hot water heater is not coming on and on and on and on.
Exactly. Buy products locally. This has to do with transportation, doesn't it?
Oh yes. We need to shorten the truck trips.
Right.
Walmart is way ahead of the rest of the world in that they won't buy from somebody who has to truck their product in from a long way.
And the nice thing about buying products locally is that you're also helping your own community.
Same thing on a global basis, though. Buy something that's made here so it doesn't have to ship across the ocean.
Exactly. Buy minimally packaged goods. That's really important.
Because of the plastic involved.
Right.
Most of our packaging comes from either cardboard, paper, which save the trees, or plastic. And if you said we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about plastic because it's important. Carpool when you can, of course, less driving. That's just smart.
Sure.
Right? Don't idle in the car.
It's that's to make people aware. It's a good thing to do, but the trucks, especially the commercial trucks, are the ones that are really bad. But if everybody didn't idle with their engines running like that, we take a huge chunk out of that 70 million tons.
Absolutely. Drive less, of course. Again, that's a given. Drive less. Maybe get a bicycle.
Yeah. That's not so funny though in Europe. Get a bicycle. That's serious.
Absolutely, especially in Holland, everybody rides a bicycle. They even have bicycle accidents all the time.
Yeah.
Reduce garbage. Well, this is again important. It has to do also with packaging. Plant a tree. Tell me what a tree would do. We saw the kids doing that. They do that a lot.
Well, it has to do with the obviously, trees process the CO2 and create the oxygen that we all need to live. And we're losing our forests at a terrible rate. The rainforests around the world are just being wiped out, period. So we need to replace the trees. Most of the people that want to pacify you on that issue tell you about the reforesting programs that are going on. Those reforesting programs are mostly by people or corporations that use trees. Forget about those. It's the rest of us and a poor guy in Brazil is slashing down forests, right? And it's called slash and burn to create a little land so he can grow a crop to feed his family. That's honorable, but it's also devastating to
the world.
We literally can get to a point at some point along the way where we're not cleaning up. There's only two ways to clean up the CO2 that doesn't go up into the atmosphere. The trees have to process it, or the ocean has to grab it and take it down.
Use a push mower.
Well, so you don't putt and kick that stuff up in the air.
Unplug unused electronics. I've started doing that quite a bit.
You know what?
Yes.
In order for the industry to help, the small appliance industry itself created the term vampires.
Yes.
If you get up in the middle, when you get older, when you get as old as I am, you
Yeah.
get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. When you get up and you can see red dots all
Yeah.
over your house, that's energy being used. Just because you don't have it on, the
It doesn't mean
appliance
it's not
on,
being
it's
wasted.
still sucking energy.
Put on a sweater. That has to do with, you don't need to have really high heat in the house. Wash your clothes on the cold. Yeah, cold water.
For the last 25 years, the dishwasher does not know the difference whether
Between
the
cold water
the
and hot
detergents
water.
are made
That's right.
that way.
Air dry your clothes, which is,
Which is
what they
good.
do mostly in the third world. Buy organic food.
Yes.
Bring cloth bags to the market. Yeah, I can't believe that some stores still are providing plastic bags, but we should bring our own cloth bags.
It would make a tremendous difference.
A tremendous difference, yes. Turn off your computer. I'm
Yes.
starting to do that every night. Eat your greens. Well, that just makes you healthy.
Yes.
And this is one of my favorite. Ditch the plastic.
But just for a second before you go past that, it's basically an unprocessed food.
Exactly. And
That's
healthy.
the good part
It's
of that.
healthy.
Yes.
Ditch the plastic, and this is something I feel it's my pet peeve. Plastic.
Well, it's mine too.
Let's talk about
and it's
plastic.
Green
and
Team
why,
America's
yes,
too.
and why is that?
Because the plastic doesn't go away. It's just like the CO2 going into the atmosphere. It's not that there are greenhouse gases that aren't bad. CO2 is bad because it doesn't go away. The plastic that goes into the landfill or goes into the waterways, it's only two places it can go. If it goes into the landfill, that plastic water bottle that goes in there, an archaeologist 1,000 years from now digging around is going to find that same plastic water bottle because it doesn't degrade. But that's not the worst. The worst is the plastic sacks and bottles that make their way into the water system. Here in Houston, if you throw away a plastic bottle and it doesn't go into a landfill, it will go into the drainage system into our bios, which goes into the Gulf, which goes into the ocean chains, which will wind up off of the coast of Alaska in a massive gyre, which is a big whirlpool. And that's that sounds like science fiction, but it is true.
It's true, and isn't there like some trash in the ocean that's all plastic, that's the size of Texas, or twice the size of Texas?
the size of
and
Texas.
where is that? Twice the size of Texas.
It's off of our northwest coast of Alaska and where the Bering is up there. But that mass up there is bad because it's there and it's visible, and it's that plastic that doesn't break down, and it's accumulated from all over the world, and it winds
right
up there and it doesn't go away. And what the bad part, even the worst part of that is, it's not hurting anybody while it's floating out there. It's an eyesore and all that, but it's not hurting anybody, we thought, until very recently it's discovered below that the sunshine doesn't rise. It's a dead zone.
Dead zone.
Nothing lives
Killing
below it.
all kinds of life. So we need to spread the word, right? Spread the word about this and
Yes.
get out there and do something, correct?
Yes.
Why you say all the time, look, we need to change the way we live. Can you give me an idea what that means?
Well, you touched on a lot of it. Before we got into high gear, not just the Industrial Revolution, but then we hit a couple of wars that forced us into moving science ahead and moving away. And we started living extravagantly in this country. Everybody wanted to be like us because we had a car. We had 2 cars. We had big houses. We had all these kind of foods and clothing. And so we had the good life that everybody else on the planet wanted to have. That's okay when I was a kid, because there weren't very many of us. And the CO2 that we generated, we only had 1 car when I was a kid.
Right.
Well, now families have 2, 3, and 4 cars, depending on how many kids they've got. So the kind of lifestyle that even in my short lifetime, we're a blink of the eye on the history scale.
Yes, we are.
But in that time, we lived a life that the planet could support. That we didn't have water problems, we didn't have air problems. We lived a simpler lifestyle. If we are going to survive on this planet, that's what we've got to get back to. That's what China is watching us to see what we're going to do.
We have to set the example. I'd like to ask you, what are the three most important things you'd like to leave our viewers with regards to atmospheric pollution?
The easiest part of the first one is listen to your kids, because they already know. They're the ones that are going to inherit this planet, and they don't like what they're inheriting. So actually, at this stage of the game, listen to them. They do understand. They get it. They know what's going on. We need to live a simpler lifestyle. That doesn't mean we have to go back and let go of our things that we've come to live with. We don't have to give up air conditioning. We don't have to give up our cars. We just have to be smarter about how we use them. I don't drive a Lincoln anymore. I drive a Prius. That doesn't mean I had to go out and buy one. When it came time to buy a new car, you think smart. Wait a minute, I'm not going to buy a gas guzzler. I'm going to buy a gas saver. If you apply that to everything you do, then we multiply you times 10 billion and we solve the problem.
How do you know you're living smart?
I'm probably not living as smart as I should. I know some people who do. I know some people who pay less than $20 a month on their electric bill in one of the highest areas in town.
So you're just making the right choices.
I'm doing a lot. I do more now than I used to. My wife is after me a lot. We're getting better.
Thank you so much, Gary Dunham, for the work that you're doing and for Green Team America.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. To learn more about global warming, go to our website. There you'll find a complete resource list. You can also email us or call us with your comments at 713-743-8513. And that's our show for today. I hope you're enjoying it. Remember to live smart. I'm Patricia Gross. Have a sustainable week. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For a transcript of this program, send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.